this demonstration I'm going to show you how to use just one of the dies from the Four Seasons set by John Next Door to make this beautiful sort of almost summery, it's a sort of spring, summer, or could even be autumn card with the beautiful trees on the front, almost looks like pottery, and this shaded background. So to start with, we need to cut the first panel. So I've taken a piece of white super smooth stamping card here, and this has been cut to 5.5 by 7.5. And I'm going to use die 2 in the set. It's easy to tell which one's which because this has the open trunks of the tree and more open space, whereas the first layer or the first die is closed off. So it's to give you a really good indication of what's where. So all we want to do is to place that in the middle, evenly around the piece of card. Just simply going to tape it down, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine and cut it. So I'm just going to run that through. And what you want to have prepared for this is a piece of card or a piece of board that has a little bit of magnetic sheet stuck to it. And the reason for this is we want to hold the die in die cut in place whilst we're doing the shading. So I've cut this. If any pieces fall out, don't worry. And I'm going to put it down, and if you see as I put it down to the magnetic sheet, it's held. So this has been held in place, which makes it a little bit easier. What you can do is just tape it in a couple of corners just to make sure it doesn't slide around too much, but the die will be held by the actual magnetic sheet that's keeping it covered. So what we need to do now is we're going to start shading the trees. So I'm going to use my Craft Artist blending brushes. So I'm going to start with a sort of large size, and I'm using the Craft Artist blending inks in the petals, and this is the spring selection, and I'm going to take this sort of verbena sort of greeny colour. So take my ink, add a little bit to my brush, and then I'm simply going to shade lightly over all of the tops of the trees. You don't have to be too precise. You'll actually find, let's just take this little bit of tape off here, you'll actually find that if you shade over everything, it will make sense when the die cut pieces fall out. So that's got that yellowy green colour on. If you need to work any colour off, I'm then going to go for this darker green shade, and I'm just gently shading this over the top so that I've got different shades. So I've got, as you would see through the tree, it's sort of dappled look through the tree. Again, work any excess colour off. I'm then going to go in with this light sort of yellow colour and add a little bit of that on as well, all over the top, just to blend all those bits through. I'm then going to switch down to a smaller brush, and I'm going to swap over to my autumn inks because I want to use this sort of almost a beigey colour. So I'm going to load my brush, and I'm just going to go up the trunks of the trees. So I'm going up the trunks of the trees to add a little bit of the brown in. And again, I then want to go for this more browny colour and just take a little bit over the top and work it into the branches of the trees. And you'll see the branches coming off. It's relatively simple. So we'll just work all that through. And again, then switch back to our brush with a little bit of this darker green, and just allows you to blend away any portions that have perhaps been a little bit too brown. There we go. And we've got that, and you can spend quite a long time or quite quickly on that. We'll move the inks away. I'm just going to pop my brushes to one side. There we go. And we've got our shaded colour through. So all we need to do is take the die off, which is quite simple. I'm then going to take this off the board, and we'll see then when we give it a little bit of a flick to get the pieces out, we've got our shaded trees. And anywhere you've missed, you can just take them out. But if you can see there, every time I do this, it comes out a little bit differently, brighter or lighter, depending on how I do it. But there I've got my trees. If I bring in the card blank I've done, you can see there, we've got those beautiful shaded trees. So what I need to do now is I want to frame that ready. So using the Stitch Dot rectangular dies and the plain dies from Presscut, I've made a little set of frames, and there is another video demonstration showing you how to do this on the YouTube channel. So I can just frame it exactly round, get that lovely white border, and you can see how you've got that crisp white border all the way around. That's because the die protected it, so you keep that lovely clean fresh look. So there is our foreground done. We now want to work on our background, so I'm going to move that to one side, and what I've got here is just a piece of parchment or vellum, nothing really thick or very expensive, just a simple piece of vellum, and again cut down to this 5.5 by 7.5 size. So once again I'm going to take one of my blending brushes, and I'm going to start on the top. I'm using the Autumn palette of the inks by Craft Artist, and I'm going to start on the top with this sort of reddy brown colour. So all I'm going to do is put some on my brush, and I'm just going to shade them. Because these are pigment style inks and they're water based, they blend beautifully, so don't worry if you go on with a big blob, you can just blend that out. So I'm going with that sort of reddy colour about across the top third of the card, and work off any spare. And then I'm going to go for this sort of gingery colour. So this is again like a ginger. So put some onto the brush, and I just want to work that first of all across in a stripe, and then blend that into the top colour by pulling from the base, from the lighter colour into the darker colour. You see there I get that sort of orangey colour, and I can make that more intense or lighter by adding more shades and blending it up. Okay, so what I'm then going to do is go into this yellowy colour. So this is a yellow, and again I'm using the Autumn shade as they're all tied together to give this beautiful look. So again, take your colour and put it across in a stripe, and then gently blend into your orange and into your red, light strokes, so we get that ombre effect coming down. And the final layer on this one, just to get it nice and light, I'm switching into the spring inks, and I'm going to take this really sort of light yellow, turn my paper because I want to do this from the bottom. So take this light yellow and just put a little bit on and merge those colours together. And again, just streak it through until you get a beautiful faded look. Really easy to do, and because it's on vellum, it's beautifully muted. So if I bring in a piece of white card, you'll be able to see there how I've got that really nice muted background. Turn this one over. It's the clean side, we can see there, and we pop our frame on, and we've got that beautiful shaded through. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of foam tape and foam mount this on, and you want to do this first. So I'm following the line, so you don't want to be putting the background in. What we're actually doing is we're working from the front to the back, whereas normally you would work sort of from the back or from the middle out. This time we're working front down, which makes sense of the card. So just a little bit of foam tape. I'm using 2mm foam tape, but you can use what you like. But in this there are a lot of different levels, so I find the 2mm gives me a really nice soft look. So we'll take the protective sheet off, and this time what you want to do, bring your background in. I'm going to remove the card underneath. Let's choose whether I want the front or the back. I'm actually going to use the back this time. Select where you're happiest and put your colour down. Then use your scissors to undercut anywhere that overlaps. So just trim out the excess, and I've got my scissors tilted again, as I always do, at an angle, which means I cut underneath the front die cut. So now we want to add on our deer, or you could put anything that you want to in here. So I've got the 3 little deer, and what I want to do with these is I'm going to use a little bit of spray glue, as it doesn't show as much, but I'm going to spray glue these on the front. So normally we would be spraying them to stick them down, but I want them to stick forward. So a light spray of spray glue, which is why I'm using a spray glue, because it doesn't show through as much. I can then turn my image over, and you can see there, if I actually put in a darker shade, you'll be able to see more. We can see the visible space. So then I can take my deer and place them into that space. In fact, this time I think I'm going to use just the large and the smallest one. There we go. So I've got the large and the smallest there popping in. Just make sure that's nicely stuck down. There we go. Okay. And then we want to bring in a piece of white to mount this onto. But again, we don't want it flat. We want to have a little bit of depth. So I'm going to bring in some more foam tape. And just again, follow the lines. Really easy, because you can see through the vellum where you've gone. So put a little bit more foam tape on. Going through here. There we go. Remove the backing on this. And this is going straight down onto a piece of white card, so that the colours actually show through, because at the moment with nothing at the back, they're quite or relatively muted. So we'll take our white card, we'll place that on top, but you can see then you've got depth through. You're sort of seeing them almost through a heat haze. And then we just simply add a little bit of the Craft Artist wet glue and onto a card blank. And I've backed this with a little bit more of the green that I've used in the frame. Place it in. You can see there's a little bit of card showing through. So just trim that off. That's what I love about the Craft Artist glue, because I've got that time, if something's wrong, to take it off. It's not until I push down and give it a minute that it's actually glued and adhered. So we'll give that a push down. And there I've got my soft and subtle trees. That's almost got a spring-like look. When you use more intense colours, or you push a little bit more, you get these darker shades. But you can see there 2 versions of the same card, made just using one of the main dies from the set, and we've used little stags in there, and you've got that shaded background, and beautiful for spring, summer, or even autumn. Change the colour and make that autumnal. Enjoy.